Welcome to another episode of the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I'm your host, Patrick Thompson, and I am taking over for the day while Kurt is out of office. So today we'll be talking to a very special guest. He's someone from a team that is looking to appeal to the masses when it comes to blockchain technologies and digital currencies. They use BSV as a railing for a lot of the infrastructure that they're building, and that infrastructure ranges from an NFT marketplace to a digital asset exchange, to custody products, and so much more. I'm going to leave it at that because I want him to do a lot of the talking about these products for himself. But before we get started today, I want to take a look at, some of the current events that have taken place in the BSV ecosystem, or rather an event that has just happened, which is the CoinGeek conference in New York. So what really stood out to me there is that I got to talk to a number of business representatives that were in attendance, as well as just blockchain enthusiasts whose primary blockchain might not even be BSV, as well as BSV enthusiasts who were there as well. But I think the consensus was that when I was talking to businessmen and businesswomen, they felt like if they don't learn about blockchain technology and digital currencies now, they're going to be left in the dust by their competitors who do. That really stood out to me. Not all of them were sure how they were going to use the blockchain yet, but they did feel this sense that they need to begin learning. Otherwise, it's going to be too late for them. And then when it came to the consumers and the enthusiasts, what stood out to me there was they really enjoyed just using some of the apps and services that were either built on BSV, like Haste, Crypto Fights, and other gaming products. And a lot of them also really liked BSV because it's the version of Bitcoin that is closest to the way it's been laid out in the Bitcoin white paper. And there's a lot of value in that and staying true to that vision. So before we bring in our guest for today, I'll announce him in a second. I've been holding out on you guys. We're going to cut over to Alex because I'm sure he has a commercial for us to play. Alex, go for it.
Yeah, I'd also say, the first widget is always the most expensive, and this is still a new technology that's improving every day and getting better, and the competition will help to make it even better more quickly. But I think people that want to dismiss crypto as being unsustainable don't fully understand the complexity of the opportunity that crypto has for society across the board. It's not just about mining efficiency, it's also about how it's going to improve every industry.
Mm-hmm. And here we are with Eric Bernhard. He is the general manager of Fabriik Digital Objects. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Patrick. Thanks for asking. And thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited. It's been on my work bucket list to come on the show with you folks.
Well, I'm happy you could jump on because Fabriik is doing a lot of exciting stuff. We learned about quite a bit of it at the CoinGeek conference, but I know you have more up your sleeve, which I'd like you to talk about today. But before we get into that, really, I did a small introduction of you, but how about you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name's Eric Bernhard. I work at Fabriik. Fabriik is a digital financial services company. Our goal is to bridge the gap between B2C and B2B industries. And by building bridges between the two, that essentially manifest as a liquidity ecosystem or a complete liquidity ecosystem. Now, that's a lot of jargony terms sometimes, but really what we're trying to do is trying to give people access to the types of financial services that they want, whether it's exchanging crypto, it's purchasing or selling, or it's about NFTs and how they can access that market without getting bamboozled by other platforms.
And something I've always wondered is, Eric, how did you get interested in sort of the blockchain digital asset industry?
It's a good story. So I heard about crypto probably back in 2014 or so, and where I personally got, personally became invested in a couple of different assets through, and listening and learning about it and understanding how, how it could be the future of cash transactions online. And so I started to learn a little bit. I think the first place that I dipped my toe was in VeChain. Before they were an actual chain. They were just starting to do the private sales and ICO. During that ICO craze, which was impossible to decipher who was a scam and who wasn't. So I was lucky enough to find one that was decent. That wasn't a scam. I think decent is a different story nowadays, but wasn't a scam. And then I was talking to a few folks, some people that were interested in the industry that were getting into it, and then I got invited actually to come to CoinGeek London, and which was the last big CoinGeek event, I think, before New York. The rest of them were smaller due to COVID, but the last big one before we went into the pandemic. And I heard, in fairness, I heard Craig speak. I heard him speak about his vision and his model and how cryptocurrencies are not about being anonymous so that you can do illicit transactions, and how it would never be to support that world, and how he would do everything in his power to bring this actual evolution to the financial system, rather than just trying to make so much money in such a short period of time that it you're taking money away from real people. It's the opposite of financial freedom or economic freedom. So I believed in what Craig was saying, and I still do. And the mantra and the model is the same for me still, where crypto can offer the ability to make sure that people can access a financial system that is not flawed the way that the current financial system is.
And before I get to the next question, I gotta say, I see people in the comments talking trash about the green screen that I have hanging behind me. So just before I get to that, I recently moved. I gotta paint this room that I'm in. That's my office. Yeah, the green screen, bro, it's droopy. That's a comment from Joshua. I have to paint the wall a little bit, but the best I can do is cover those splotches with the green screen right now. So that's my one and only time addressing the green screen. I don't want to hear about it again. But I agree with you there. And I think what Fabriik is up to is really on a mission to bring a lot of those things to fruition, to make a lot of those things a reality. So maybe how did Fabriik, come to fruition? When did you guys you and Roy, for those who don't know, Roy's your brother, come up with the idea for Fabriik and really put it in motion to get it to where it is today?
Yeah, so Roy and his partner came up with the idea for a algorithmically traded hedge fund, and that's how it started as the Bayesian Fund. And through the course of time, we try to listen to the market as much as possible, and we try to understand what people want, what they don't want, what's going to work for everyone, and what will also grow the BSV ecosystem. And I think, and after a period of time where we worked on all the different algorithms and the different ways and investment strategies, we realized that there is a bigger opportunity here for a more cohesive, complete ecosystem. And so Roy pulled me in. Roy is the one that invited me to the CoinGeek London conference, and he asked me to help out with some of the marketing pieces to make sure that that they showed up well. And then while I was there, I kind of got hooked. But after that, we came back and we really evaluated. Okay, well, what does the market need? Well, the market needs a single place that they can go to where they can have all their digital assets in the same place. And so we started down that journey, and that journey involved a trading desk, which we currently have. It involves a trading API, so people can integrate trading into their existing desks. A lot of other OTC desks integrate our API into their desk so that they can see our prices compared to other people's prices. A lot of people are integrating the Weave API into their actual platforms like CryptoFight and Transmira, and so what we were learning is that the industry and the BSV community needed infrastructure, but we also had lots of ideas to build on top of that infrastructure. So either what we would do is we'd say, well, what product do we think the market needs? Let's check it out and ask people about it, and then make sure that we're building it on top of an infrastructure that we can also allow other people to build on top of. It's the same model that we have with Money Button, right? And the simple Fabriik token protocol, where people want to use. People love Money Button. We love Money Button.
I love Money Button.
I love Money Button. I think that, and I think I use it every day, and every time I can do anything with it. If someone wants me to send them money, I'm like, hey, I have a Money Button account. You should get one too. It takes 5 seconds. So what we're trying to do is, okay, so we have Money Button, and then we have this infrastructure underneath. And how do we build that API, those APIs, to allow other people to build on top of? And that's been our model going forward. And we've done a couple of things that worked really well. We've done some things that haven't worked really well. But we're always, we're in startup mode, so we're always listening and learning and admitting our successes and admitting our failures. So that's the mantra that we have at Fabriik.
So I'll say this too, that I think sometimes a lot of people forget that BSV is relatively young, right? The chain turns 2 years old this year, and it takes a while for that crucial, critical infrastructure to be built and to get off the ground. And one of the many things that I really like about Money Button is it is one of those first tools, one of those first instances that people building sort of applications on top of BSV were using Money Button to accomplish that payment, whether it be to publish data on chain or to send payment from one person to the next. And I think that's crucial. I see a question here from King Caesar, and he says, we're going to get to this soon. So I'll read the question, but I might hold out on him. He's saying, what do I need to use to make an account? I want to buy NFTs and trade on Fabriik. But before we talk about Fabriik, in the answer you just gave me, you mentioned Weave. And Fabriik Weave was something that was recently mentioned at the CoinGeek conference. And for those who might have missed the announcement, maybe they weren't there in person, maybe they couldn't tune in virtually, can you tell us a little bit more about what Fabriik Weave is?
Absolutely. So Fabriik Weave is meant to be and is a simple, seamless crypto exchange. It allows you to go from one asset to another really easily and at market rates. And so, imagine a Changely or Change Hero style app. That's exactly what Fabriik Weave is. Now, the two pieces about Fabriik Weave that are really important to us are it comes in two forms. The first is a widget where you can just grab some code, embed it on your site, and you're good to go. It'll pop up in the bottom right kind of corner of your page, and it right there, ready to go, super easy, super quick to use. The next variation of it in that same model is that it also comes as an API that you can completely integrate into the back end of your system or your app without any Fabriik branding. It's just a completely seamless, exchange service, and that's exactly what Crypto Fights is implementing.
So something that I like, because I live in the USA, and I actually see a comment here about being in North America. It's very difficult for us to purchase BSV. Now, the case used to be that through the Bitrex exchange, Bittrex, however people want to pronounce it, that was a great option until now. It's something like 130 confirmations on there. And that takes an unreasonable amount of time to the point where it's not really a feasible solution anymore. But now when it comes to Fabriik Weave, the way I imagine it is like Changely, like you mentioned, that if I have this one digital asset and I'm looking to acquire more BSV, I can easily boot up Fabriik Weave. I've used it on the web browser before. You send your Litecoin to the one location, your BSV arrives in the next location. So I see that as being one of the best on-ramps. But like you just mentioned, Crypto Fights and maybe a couple other BSV businesses are looking to use it. So how do we imagine them implementing it into their service, or what will that look like, or what are some ideal use cases for Fabriik Weave?
So for Fabriik, the comments coming in are fantastic. Thank you. And I'll try to answer some of them. I think that, a lot of them come back to our model, which is we want to be regulatory first, and we want to make sure that we're not running into trouble like all the other exchanges have been running into trouble from a regulation perspective, and because we don't want anyone to be in trouble. Ultimately, like we Craig has been very specific about all these things, which is stay on the legal side of things, right? We're not trying to allow any illicit transactions. And until the regulations sort of open up, we want to be very mindful of that. And so right now you can use Weave in any state except for New York State. For transactions under $250, we're going to be changing that limit shortly to increase it. I can't give you an exact promise of what that date is, but it will be in the next couple of weeks where we increase the limit to closer to $1,000. We still have the same issues in New York State still exist. That is because we don't have a bit license or any regulatory because New York State requires a very specific license to be able to transact or on-ramp or exchange crypto. And so, we're in the process of talking and getting those licenses. But at the same time, I want to make sure that everyone knows that we don't operate in New York State because New York State doesn't allow it. So that's the important piece. Outside of New York State, pretty much anywhere in the world is good to go except for sanctioned countries.
And here we have TOG asking, and also shout out to TOG. I see him frequently watching the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. That means a lot to us. He's asking, you answered the everywhere question, but he's wondering what the KYC process is like.
Yeah, so right now, for transactions below $250 US or equivalent US, KYC is your name and your email address and your place of residence. And that's it.
And I think what's really good about that is people can get up and running using Weave very quickly, opposed to some of the other processes where maybe they need to upload a picture of their driver's license and their passport, and then they wait 24 hours to. There's none of that when it comes to using Fabriik Weave. They can get up and running in minutes.
Not right now, exactly. Not right now. And for those that want to check it out, just go to fabriik.com and you find, and Weave is right there. We use our own products. If we didn't, then I think that'd be a little hypocritical.
And speaking of your own products, so we've kind of touched on Fabriik Weave, and that was a huge announcement that was made at CoinGeek Conference New York last week, October 5th to October 7th. I was fortunate enough to meet you there, and we got to take our conversations from offline to in person, which was great. But what you guys also sort of announced, or it was stealth launched at a point in time, but talked about more at the conference, is Fabriik X. So can you tell us what Fabriik X is?
Absolutely. I'm super excited about Fabriik X. So Fabriik X I'll start off with, it's an NFT marketplace. And it's different because it is expertly curated. And well, what does that mean, expertly curated? So right now you have two types of NFT marketplaces. You have vertical marketplaces and horizontal marketplaces. A horizontal marketplace is one that is every NFT that we can find is on that marketplace. They don't care who creates it, who uploads it, whether or not it has it has relevance, whether it's going to have value in the future, whether it's on-chain, off-chain, they don't care. And so that's like a place like OpenSea. So Fabriik X is considered a vertical marketplace, and that means that we isolate and we focus on a niche, and that niche is cultural relevance. So when I talk about cultural relevance, I am not the right person to determine if something is relevant. Like, who am I? Other than an expert in Fabriik X. If it was a Fabriik X collection about the history of Fabriik X, then I could probably be a curator. Outside of that, I think that there are much better curators around the world. And so when we talk about the BSV community, I talked with Kurt about it, and Kurt's going to be a curator for a collection around BSV content and NFTs. And he's going to have to determine, okay, well, which items or which moments in the history of BSV are the most relevant to the community, to the BSV community. And that's the model that we're taking from a Fabriik X perspective, where we don't decide what's culturally relevant. We find people that people trust in, and then we call them curators, like in a museum curator. And those people reach out to NFT or creators or or content partners, as we like to call them, celebrities or artists or whomever, and they are going to reach out to their network and say, hey, we think that you have a moment in history that you own that is super relevant for my collection. And then they can go ahead and they can start to curate this list of NFTs, and we will help them make sure that the NFTs are minted on chain. Specifically, we're minting NFTs right onto the blockchain. We're working with miners to make that limit as big as humanly possible, or technically possible. And the hope is that we will be able to mint an entire film on the blockchain. That's where we want to get to, full film on the blockchain. And then the second piece that we're hoping to get to with Fabriik X is to bring this concept of actual value, right? Like, not every 8-bit pixel art has value. A lot of them do, but it's not because of the art. It's because they're capturing a moment in history that people care about and that people want to own. So when you think about the Constitution, okay, well, the Constitution of the United States, well, that's a key memorable moment. But who has the relevance right now and the credibility to say, well, of all the things that we could have as NFTs, which pretty much are anything, what NFTs will make them are the most significant to this moment in history? And then we tie that into adding real world experiences. So whether it's audio commentary from somebody that you never heard from, whether it's content that you've never seen before, or whether it's a piece of or maybe it's art, or maybe it's an event in person, or it's a physical item. Like, all those things are what we were looking into with Fabriik X.
I love how you mentioned the sort of cultural relevance part of things, because I think the way a lot of blockchain-based NFTs started were the word I use is expensive JPEGs, right? When people hear NFTs, they think expensive JPEGs. But I think the reason that originally worked, and I have a friend who puts it this way, is that maybe buying an NFT at that point in time was like buying a cave painting, where you didn't quite know what you had. But let's say 100 years later and you have this NFT, you didn't know what you got into 100 years ago, but you had the very first instance of something with a lot of maybe cultural significance or historical significance. But I agree, and you touched on it a little bit, that NFTs these days need to be so much more than just that optically pleasing digital image.
Yeah.
So what are some of your ideas, or how would you like to see NFTs be used and created where they are a bit more significant than, hey, I created this JPEG and it's selling for a lot of money? Where do you think some real utility and value will come into play in the NFT market?
So I think that there's three key areas for me that I think will be really interesting. One is in politics. I think that there are massive amounts of culturally relevant moments that happen in political parties. Think about, in every country, right? We're talking about, even if we're talking about the Arab Spring, or we're talking about the U.S. Constitution, or we're talking about shifts in the Democratic Party in the U.S. or electoral reform. Like, all those things are not, like, they're not super sexy, right, from an art perspective, but they are relevant moments that we want to memorialize. And the key is, when you write them on chain, they last forever. They last forever. And those moments, we want to see those as NFTs written in stone. And so that's one area that I think is interesting. The next area is sports, of course, right? I think that, sports is just filled with magical moments that you only get to see the first time once, right? They only happen once. When Maradona scores a goal, it's, when he scored a goal, that's what happened. But then it gets copied over and over and over. And so if we can take that original moment and we can turn it into an NFT, I think that it would be so powerful that someone owns the original moment that happened in. And then you layer that on with the interesting piece of, okay, so, maybe it's, someone from Maradona's family, or it's Messi coming in and talking about what he was thinking about when he scored that goal that changed the course of football history, right? Like those are the things that are really impactful for me. And I think the third one is in games, in games. And I think that and this is where we diverge a little bit from this artistic model, right, to this creator model, where NFTs can be used as components to create something bigger and better to be useful in game. And so I think about different assets. I think a lot about the way that kids build Legos, or the concept of Ninjagos, right? Those Lego sets. Those are really powerful. Where imagine each of those unique components are NFTs, and the way that you piece them together creates a more powerful, or more a usable NFT. And so I think that there's a whole suite of opportunities there. And so those are the three industries that I think are the most fascinating. Some other ones where I think that we'll start to see really interesting NFTs created is anywhere there is original content. So if you're writing a blog, if if it's a Twitch post, if it's if let's say we go to, let's say, white papers, right? Like original works created by scientists.
Do we still have Eric here, or did we freeze? Let's see. Well, in the meantime, I think there's three buckets that NFTs fall into, and I'm happy that Eric was able to add gaming to that, because he's right, and it's not something I necessarily put into my three buckets or categories before. So the way I thought of it is something that we've seen very often is, one, generative art NFTs, and we're beginning to see that on BSV, which makes me really happy. I think the Gopniks, I think that drops on October 13th. I've been seeing a lot about it on Twitter. I've been seeing a lot about that in their Discord group. If you don't have your attention turned to that, that's something you're going to want to look at. But before the Gopniks, it was the Metabots. We saw it on the Sensible Protocol, created by the guys over at ShowPay Showbuzz. Their website is NFT on Show. But it all falls into that first category that I was sort of covering, which is generative art NFTs. Outside of that, I saw there was a sort of fine art category where people were creating these pieces that sort of resembled items you would see in a museum, I'd say, where maybe it fell into some sort of genre like the Renaissance era, or maybe it was modern art or something that looked like a Picasso. But I think people were really trying to make their stamp as a digital artist in the world of NFTs. It was something new. And then my third was trading cards and sports cards, where, to me, the first instance of that was NBA Top Shot, where people really, it was sports memorabilia being digitized and more modern to, I think, how kids growing up today are used to dealing or, interacting with the sports stuff that we see. So, Eric, I don't know if you caught the earlier bit, but I think one thing we are seeing is prestigious auction houses, Sotheby's, I don't know how to say it, I'm not cultured, but they've been auctioning off some NFTs themselves, and I think digital art is beginning to become parallel to fine art. So I just want to hear your thoughts in that regard, and I also think what Fabriik is doing is one of these higher notch NFT sort of thing, where it's not like anybody could put a scribble on a piece of paper and put them on Fabriik, but it's a curated art platform. So what do you think about what digital art is becoming, especially in relation to fine art, museums, auction houses? Where do you think we're going?
So I think that NFTs are going to power so many different things. And I think there'll be crypto native art. Absolutely. That is its own style. And because it's a different medium. I see NFTs being its own medium for art now, because it's not just an animated GIF or a little video here and there that has some audio. Like, there are specific things that you can do that when you create on the blockchain that you can't do in other mediums. So I think that there's that. I think the second thing I think is, yes, we're going to see a lot of fine art establishments pulling from artists that they believe are, that they're pulling from crypto native artists and pulling them into the mainstream art market. I think that that's also happening and going to happen, continue to happen. The key thing always comes back to cultural relevance, right? As soon as you hit the right note and people see that you're the first NFT, or you're the first of this industry, or you've done something slightly different, that is shifting the culture in a certain direction. And auction houses and now Fabriik want to present that in an amazing way. And so I think that the other piece that I care about a lot is, well, if you want to go buy some art from Sotheby's and you have, $2 million like just floating around, then sure, you can do that. You're not going to be able to do that on Fabriik. But what you will be able to do is we're going to have at least 5 tiers, at max 5 tiers of NFTs, and they're going to range from a 1 of 1, which is obviously the most rare and scarce, all the way to a community edition. And the community edition is going to start at $3. And it's not going to be an auction. It's just going to be a direct buy, between $3 and $20, depending on what that artist chooses, right? We always recommend lower is better. And that's because we want NFTs to be accessible. Right now, they're just inaccessible. People are throwing so much money. They're wasting money on gas fees. They're wasting money on the art that they don't know will have any value or not. And we don't believe that that's the right model. So from an accessibility perspective with NFTs, starting low, and then we're going to build in games and raffles and other models to allow people to progress up in terms of scarcity. So taking a community NFT and then collecting a certain amount, or there's an Easter egg in one of those that gets you to, let's say, a curator level NFT, which is a 1 of 50. And so that all of a sudden the scarcity increases and the rarity increases, which makes it more valuable. And so that's the model that we're taking with Fabriik.
And I'm happy you said value, because that's pretty much where I wanted to take this next. I think when it comes to a lot of blockchain-based digital currency kind of things, some people are slow to give them a try, slow to warm up to them, because it's not something that they're used to dealing with, and they just don't understand it right off the bat. Now, when it comes to NFTs in that regard, people might say, where's the value in this? I do think sometimes people are rolling the dice, hoping that maybe there's a greater fool that will come behind them and buy it for more. But I also think there are attributes the NFT could have that give it value. So when I'm interested in hearing your thoughts and opinions on what does give an NFT maybe more value than just being this thing you hope other people want.
It's a hard question. And so I think that if we look back to art and in the same model, like what gives art value? Well, there's a lot of different answers, right? And I don't think there's any single, study that determines value. For me, it comes back to this concept of cultural relevance, right? Do people care about this today? And will they care about it in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, in 1,000 years? And obviously we don't know about the future, but we can make some good assumptions that the broad range of generative art or when there's like 50,000 of the same face, is that really are all those faces going to be relevant in 50 years? Are people going to care? No, right? When you think back to art that people care about today, whether it's Van Gogh or Monet or Rodin, the people care because those were shifts in cultural movements around art, and there are shifts in the way that we see art and the way that we expose it and the way that we share. And I think that now people are saying, okay, well, this person was so ahead of their time, and they evolved the category of art. So I think that's a big thing, right? Cultural relevance. And I think the second thing that adds value is scarcity, right? And I think that when something is, if you can grab it off the internet in one Google image search, chances are it doesn't have a massive amount of value. And I think this is where NBA Top Shots has it completely wrong. And they're talking about, okay, well, let's just take this moment that anybody could have recorded watching the game. Like, millions of people record football games and soccer games and basketball games just to watch them, right? Later on. And any of them could have created. Do they own that? No. But do the people that are buying the NFTs on NBA Top Shot own that video clip? Absolutely not. They don't. The NBA owns it. And it's the NBA is leasing it to you for a short bit of time. But when they decide to break a contract, with NBA Top Shots, you're not going to own that moment anymore. The NBA still owns it. And so I don't think that creates value. I think that value is created through uniqueness and scarcity.
I'm happy you bring up both those elements, the uniqueness, the cultural relevance, and the scarcity. Here we have a question from Brandon Ward. Shout out to Brandon. I got to meet him in New York as well, and that's just a great guy. He says, is the value of an NFT in the proof of ownership or the NFT itself? Now, I think you answered this a tiny little bit, but it reminds me of, we're hearing the word metaverse being used more and more. And let's say something like a social media website is a metaverse, and that the NFT is sort of this, I've heard people call it digital flexing, where, you have this 1 of 5 profile picture that gives you access to this exclusive social club kind of, and people see value in that. I guess a way to explain it is, growing up, there were some items like people wanted a Supreme t-shirt, even though they're making a bunch of those. If you had this thing that was perceived as this rare exclusive item, people found value in that. But to bring it back to Brandon's question, is the value in the proof of the ownership or the NFT itself? Is it that you have this rare object, or that you own this sort of object that maybe others don't have 100% custody ownership of?
I think that it's both. I think it's both, or it can be either. So either it's like, if this is stats, it'd be and or. And so I think that from a proof of ownership perspective, there's a lot of value that can be generated depending on the type of NFT. And so if you're a researcher or a patent holder, or somebody who just is going to issue a patent, and you create your patent or your idea as an NFT and put it on the blockchain, there's a massive that has a lot of value in its own right. Now, if you have something that has value, like something where the actual content of the item has value. So like, it's the same thing. The same model comes back to a patent. Like, are patents valuable? And there are tens of millions of patents. Not all of them are valuable. Only the ones that people need to use are valuable. Only the ones that have utility are valuable. And so, and I think that when it comes to the content of the NFT, I think that that's where the complexity comes in, which is, well, one, if it's art, how much are people willing to pay for it? That's always the thing with art, right? The value of a painting is determined by how much people are willing to pay for it. And how much people are willing to pay for it is so complex, in the sense that, well, maybe it has a sentimental connection to that individual. Maybe it has cultural relevance for them, that they're related to their birthplace, or the family, or they think that it has future value as a speculative instrument, right? All those things impact the value of an NFT, of the content of the NFT. And so for me, it's the same things. Like, what determines value of an NFT, I don't think changes all that much in the industry that we're in, compared to what other industries and other items determined as value. The same way that, like, if you're in a game and you have a sword that hits 30 hit points versus a dagger that hits 2 hit points, that causes 2 hit points of damage versus 30 hit points. Well, the one that causes 30 hit points of damage more often is more valuable.
And, from there, I want to venture to the metaverse concept that I mentioned a few minutes before. Here we have a good question that we'll bring this up first. This is from Jack DeLu. I hope I said your last name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. What can be done to attract more generative art NFT projects to be created on BSV?
Mm-hmm. So I think the key is just start creating, right? But don't go in with an expectation that everything you create will have value, because ultimately we don't determine value, right? Other people determine the value of what we create. And it's not on Fabriik to determine the value of what you create. It's not on me to determine the value. It's not on Patrick, right? It's on the community. And so I think that it's really important that if you create something, know that, one, it's going to get scrutinized, like all art, that anything you put into the public realm. The second thing is make sure that you believe in it, but don't believe in it so much that you get offended when someone's like, well, this doesn't have value to me. And I think that what they're saying is, this doesn't have value to me, not to everybody. There's always somebody that something has value to. So I think that in order to create more generative art, just create, right? Create it. I think that, I love a lot of generative art, because it's fascinating and it helps build community. And so if you think about, taking an image of or a face, of any avatar, and having pieces that are generic, and then have pieces that are unique and custom, and isolating those things, I think that isolating the shape of the nose, or the shape of the ears, or the eyes, or the skin color, or the hair, right? Like, all those things are interesting because people can get on board with something that looks as close to them as possible, or a digital representation of themselves. And they know that that's unique, but there are common elements that make you a part of a community. So it's like, I'm unique as this individual, but I have common traits that allow me to be a part of a community easier. And so if it's like, the beard community, right? Patrick and I would be in the same community, right? We're both completely unique individuals, but at the same time, our beards bring us together. And so if we were in like a bearded NFT community, right? Then that makes us part of the same community. And I think that generative art is a big piece of that, where everyone is unique, but there are traits that are common amongst people that allow you to come together.
So Eric put it out there. I'm waiting for the first person to launch the generative beard NFT. I will be a buyer, so I hope you're working on it. If I can speak to that sort of question at all before I hop over to Kurt's question, I think, let's say we're looking to see a higher volume of generative art NFTs on BSV. I think someone would need to do something software-wise, where maybe somebody creates, let's say, 30 templates, 50 templates that are interchangeable, where you can give somebody one of the other templates beards and the hat from another one that mixes and matches it. I think software on the back end that does that sort of process, that generates it, is really helpful. And then on top of that, on other chains, and I think BSV will have this problem if it doesn't already have it, is the rollout of an NFT. People try to click the button, but it sells out, websites crash. I think when there's a strong sort of system in place to distribute the NFT, I think I've seen things go really well in that regard. And here's Kurt's question. He's also talking about generative NFT drop that's taking place on BSV tomorrow. He says, what are your thoughts on something like Gopnik? So it's dropping tomorrow versus a curated, high-quality, curated NFT art. So I guess that's kind of both sides of the spectrum, where what Fabriik X is doing is a curated art place, and what the Gopniks are doing is more grassroots, community launched. Hey, these are generative art NFTs on BSV that everyone sort of has that the community will learn through grassroots efforts, and if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of things. One is I love what's happening with Gopniks. I think that it's going to be great. I think that I love that they're algorithmically generated. I think that they have super cool potential. I think that for me it still comes back to are these culturally relevant, and who believes they are culturally relevant. It always comes out. And again, I am not the person to determine that. Neither is Fabriik, right? That's why we have curators, and those curators we'll talk about. So if Kurt believes, and I trust in Kurt's opinion of what's culturally relevant in the BSV community, if Kurt believes that Gopniks have cultural relevance, then that pushes me in the direction that they have more value than if he doesn't believe, right? And I think this is the role of influencers in our community to say, right, and for us to listen to them and trust them. It doesn't mean that Gopniks are going to skyrocket in value. I don't know, right? But they definitely have, but they have the backing of people that we trust, and so that gives us an opportunity, that gives us something to look forward to. And so I think that the difference between the difference between the generative art and the curated platform, I think it's just a different model, right? And it's just there's no right or wrong right now. I think that if people see value in them, then that's right. Then that's fantastic, and we support that. I think for Fabriik X, we're taking a very specific approach, which is this highly expertly curated market, and so there'll be less content than if you were to go on other platforms, and that is a purposeful choice, because we think that the NFT marketplace is already flooded with people just trying to do just cash grabs, and we don't think that that's the best showcase of NFTs.
I see a really good question here from Brandon Ward. Before I get to that, I see something in the comments. Daniel Thompson saying the fact that we are discussing Gopnik NFTs is embarrassing. I strongly disagree. It's never embarrassing to discuss a current event. This is something that the community has their attention to. People are talking about it on Twitter. So even though it might not make sense right away, I think there is value in there. Maybe there's something we don't understand. I think we should take a second look and really try to see what's under the surface. Now, this is a good question from Brandon. He says, would we say that as let me try to piece it together. It's a choppy sentence. Would say that we as BSVers need to build the hype on the potential to make money to artists that already have popularity, or do you guys see new artists coming about that are specific to NFTs? So hopefully that made sense. If not, maybe I can reframe it.
No, that makes perfect sense. So I'll reiterate what Brandon is asking, which is, do we only care about people that are already famous, or do we care about people that we think will become famous, right? And this comes back to this construct of cultural relevance. And so, I think that the base thing is we care about both. We care about, and this is why curators are so important, because curators are essentially influencers, and influencers know who's coming and who's already gone, and both of them play a part in that curated collection of relevance. And so I think that new artists, fantastic, but I also think that we can't forget about the moments in history that have passed that have gotten us to today, because so many of them have impacts on that. And so the way to think about it is, a collection is it's almost like it's like a story, and to tell a story you need to sometimes dive into the past, but also talk about the present and potentially talk about the future. And I think that's the way that we see curation. I think the other piece is that it's important for everyone to know on the call is that we're looking for curators. And if anybody is deep into an industry or a vertical or a topic or a theme that people look to you for answers, sign up, send us an email, send us a message on Twitter or Instagram, and reach out to us and ask us if they're interested. Ask us if we're interested in you becoming a curator. We don't have what we're doing now is we're not saying only if you have 10 million followers you can be a curator. I don't think that's not what we're doing. We're looking on a case-by-case basis, and we're talking to people and making sure that we understand and what people lean on you for and what people listen to you about and what people don't listen to you about. And those are the curators that we want to have. The people that where when someone has a question, they listen to you about that topic, whatever topic. It doesn't need to be English-based. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be about art. It can be about a technical subject too. I think that I even think that code would make a pretty amazing NFT.
And, I'm sorry, did you have more to add there?
No.
Well, I'm staying conscious of time here, and there are a few smaller things that I want to cover too. So one, Fabriik X and Weave are up and running. So when it comes to Fabriik X especially, we've been talking a lot about NFTs today. How can people get started using that platform? What do they need to do to maybe become a curator, which you mentioned, or if they just want to buy, sell, hold NFTs, how do they do that?
So for buying, selling NFTs, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We're going to be releasing some information around the drops. I mean, everything in NFTs follow around the drop, right? And that drop is super important. And that's the introduction of that NFT into the marketplace. And so we're starting off with just a primary marketplace. And then what we're doing is we're reaching out to people to understand, to artists, to celebrities, to users, and the BSV community to understand, well, what do they want to see in the secondary marketplace? And how do they want to interact? Is it around gamification? Is it around I just want to be able to make an offer to somebody that owns an NFT that I want? Or if it's, or is it something different? And then the second piece is around how to reach out to us. So simple, shoot us a direct message on Twitter, shoot us a message on Instagram. We constantly monitor both those channels. Like someone watching them every single second of every single day. So your message will not be unseen. Whether we respond to it immediately is down to volume, but it will go unseen. The next thing that you can do is just reach out to any of us here. You can find me on Twitter. You can find Patrick or any of us. And reach out to us and say, hey, I want to. I'd love to be a curator, right? Shoot us a message. We're going to be releasing some tools and some forms for people to sort of more formally apply to be a curator or to be an affiliate or a referrer, because we're always looking for people to bring more amazing content to the world. And I think the hope with Fabriik X is that we broaden the community as much as possible, right? We showcase the power of BSV in the broadest market. So I think that Patrick, there's been a couple of questions about creating tokens on Fabriik. And so I want to talk about make sure that we talk about the tokenization API that we have through Fabriik's Money Button.
Let's talk about it.
Because I think that people forget. When you go to TokenPow or you go to a couple other sites and you're creating an NFT, you're using the Fabriik Simple Token protocol. You're creating NFT and a token inside the Money Button wallet. And that is, whether it's a utility token or an NFT, you can do both of those things through the tokenization protocol. All the information is you can find all the information if you go to fabriik.com. There's links to the API documentation, super simple to throw the code on your site, really easy. And just, if you're not sure how to do it, again, shoot us a message on social media. We'll respond to you. It will not go unread. And again, responding is just a matter of volume, but we will respond to everybody as quickly as possible.
And my final question for you here, Eric, before I let you go for the day is, what can the audience expect from Fabriik in the near future, in the far future? What is the team working on? What do you guys have on the pipeline? What can we expect to see?
So I'll talk about Fabriik Weave to start. So for Fabriik Weave, we want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction to increase access and liquidity in the marketplace. And so the first thing is that we're making sure is that the Weave, the way that it is, functions perfectly. Every single time you get the right information, you're able to do a transaction. And next, we're going to look at changing the limits, and then after that, we're going to look at adding fiat on ramps and off ramps. And then from there, we're going to keep on moving down the path of making it better and better and better, and hitting the needs of the community. And it's important that people in the community feedback to us and say, this works for us, this doesn't work for us. I will ask for constructive criticism and feedback, saying this doesn't work for me because I need X, rather than, this sucks. It's hard to do something with that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that everyone reaches out to us and said, I would love to see this. Can you do this? And people are already coming to us and doing that, which is amazing. And we throw those in our product roadmap, and we prioritize those based on how many people are coming to us. The next thing is for Fabriik X is we're just getting excited and ready to do our first drop. And the goal of Fabriik X from a drop perspective is that we can definitely broaden our community for people that have never seen or had access to crypto. And they might not know what BSV is and the difference between BSV and other cryptocurrencies. And so we want to make sure that people understand the power of BSV and why it matters. And so we focus a lot on education, and we focus a lot on pieces that other NFT marketplaces don't, where they're so focused on how do we make a buck, how do we charge a transaction fee, charge this fee, charge that fee, until an artist is still losing money. I mean, like, NFTs are not changing the artist community right now. There's a new opportunity, but a lot of them are struggling with the concept of gas prices, even using like Immutable or other places where they say there's no gas fees, right? They're still built on top of a layer 1 technology that has massive fees. So somebody somewhere is paying for that. And that is a limit to the ability for art to flourish as NFTs.
That being said, Eric, I appreciate you hopping on, sharing your insights and thoughts with us today. I hope the audience was able to learn a whole lot about Weave, as well as Fabriik X. NFTs are a really hot topic right now, so I think you said a lot of really good things. You brought up a lot of really good elements that people might not always think of when they think NFTs, so thank you for that. Anytime.
Happy to come on anytime and answer any questions. Shoot us a message to the Fabriik Twitter account or Instagram. We're always there. We're always listening, and we'll try to answer as best as we can. I know that there's some questions about STAS, Layer 0 tokens, so shoot those messages on Twitter to us now that we've run out of time here, and we'll definitely answer back the best that we can. And I want to make sure that people know that Fabriik's here. We're in the BSV community. We support you. We're trying to do the best that we can to make it amazing. And so, the more feedback that we get from you guys, the more support, the stronger it is.
And I think this is a good comment to end on. We have Becky Legiro saying, thank you, Eric and Team Fabriik. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Becky.
So here I will wrap up the show. That's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Eric Bernhard from Fabriik, telling us all about Fabriik's sort of financial products as well as their NFT marketplace. Both have launched. You can use them both today. I think if you head over to Fabriik.com, you'll find all the information you need. But other than that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. My name is Patrick Thompson. I think if you come back next Tuesday at 2 p.m. EST, you will probably have your regular host, Kurt Wickert Jr. You'll have me in the comments, but make sure you're there to watch another great episode of the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. Thank you.